June 9th, 1972 began like any other summer day for the residents of Rapid City, South Dakota. Nestled at the edge of the scenic Black Hills, the city had long been shaped by the gentle, clear waters of Rapid Creek. For decades, people had built their homes and lives along its banks, trusting in the creek's familiar rhythms and modest flow. That afternoon, the official weather forecast predicted only scattered showers and thunderstorms, common for western South Dakota during this season. Yet beneath this ordinary forecast, a dangerous combination was quietly forming. The ground across the region was already saturated from days of intermittent rain. With the soil unable to absorb any more moisture, any new rainfall would quickly turn into runoff, rushing downhill without restraint. At the same time, the atmosphere was primed for disaster. A powerful stream of warm, moisture-laden air moved in from the east. When this humid air hit the steep slopes of the Black Hills, it was forced upward rapidly, a process known as the orographic effect, which cools the air and causes heavy precipitation. But the true danger lay higher in the sky. The winds aloft were unusually calm. Typically, these winds push storms along, preventing prolonged rainfall in one spot. On this day, the winds were nearly still, allowing thunderstorms to stall directly above the same watersheds for hours. The result was relentless, concentrated downpours, dumping massive amounts of rain over a relatively small area. This rare meteorological convergence, saturated earth, moist air, and stalled storms created a perfect recipe for catastrophe. There were rumors about nearby cloud seeding experiments possibly triggering the floods. However, every thorough scientific investigation has ruled this out. The flood was a natural event, born of extraordinary weather conditions rather than human interference. The first signs of trouble began early that afternoon. At 1:30 p.m., radar operators stationed at Ellsworth Air Force Base detected thunderstorms developing over the Black Hills region. By 5 o'clock that evening, steady rain was falling to the west of Rapid City, though the city itself remained relatively calm, unaware of the looming disaster. Upstream, conditions were deteriorating rapidly. Around 7:15 p.m., the National Weather Service issued its first official flash flood warning for the northern part of the Black Hills. Half an hour later, a desperate call came from the small community of Nemo. Residents reported flooding along Box Elder Creek, with 2 small dams already failing, forcing evacuations. In response, by 8 o'clock p.m., the flash flood warning expanded to include Rapid Creek and Rapid City. Still, for many locals, the warnings seemed distant and abstract. They had witnessed the creek rise before during heavy rains. It was a familiar nuisance, not a deadly threat. Few could grasp the scale of what was building. By 9 o'clock p.m., signs of chaos began to appear. The commercial phone lines at the Weather Service office started failing under the strain of frantic calls, a clear indication that the situation was spiraling out of control. Between 9 o'clock in the evening and midnight, the storm unleashed its full fury. The skies opened wide, dumping an astonishing amount of rain. In some areas, an incredible 15 inches of rain fell within just 6 hours. Over a 60 square mile region, more than 10 inches soaked the ground, an amount 4 times greater than what would be expected in a once-in-a-100-year storm. The normally dry gullies and small ravines of the Black Hills rapidly transformed into raging rivers, funneling torrents of water, mud, rocks, and fallen trees into the main creek channels. One gauge on Rapid Creek, located just upstream from Rapid City, recorded the water level rising an astounding 12 feet in only 2 hours. The situation became critical at Canyon Lake Dam, constructed during the 1930s to create a popular lake west of Rapid City. As floodwaters poured downstream, debris, logs, uprooted trees, and fragments of buildings jammed the dam's spillway, effectively sealing it off like a bottle cork. With no outlet, the water behind the dam surged 11 to 12 feet above its normal level, increasing pressure dramatically. Then at precisely 10:45 p.m., the dam catastrophically failed. Rather than a sudden explosion, it was a progressive breach that released the entire swollen lake in one massive, unstoppable wave, rushing directly toward the heart of Rapid City. Just after midnight on June 10th, the massive wall of water and debris slammed into downtown Rapid City with devastating force. The volume of water rushing through the streets was staggering, over 50,000 cubic feet per second. To put that in perspective, it was more than 10 times greater than any flood previously recorded on Rapid Creek. This was not simply a flood, it was a liquid avalanche of destruction. Survivors described the sound as a freight train barreling through the city. Entire homes were ripped from their foundations and tossed like paper dolls. Propane tanks broke free, becoming deadly missiles that exploded on impact, adding fire to the chaos. The night was filled with thunder, lightning, the relentless roar of rushing water, and the chilling cries of people trapped on rooftops. Many clung to anything that floated, hoping to survive the unthinkable. One harrowing story comes from Dave Baumberger, who was helping his father move belongings when the water rose too quickly. Along with 8 others, including a family with 3 young boys, they sought refuge in the attic of the tallest house on their street. Soon the entire house was uprooted and torn apart by the raging waters. Dave was thrown through the roof into the floodwaters, surviving only by clinging to a tree. Tragically, of the 9 people in that house, only 2 survived. The Masters family faced their own nightmare. Trying to escape in their truck, they were swept into trees by the floodwaters just seconds from safety. Trapped as the water filled their vehicle, Pastor Ron Masters, his wife, and daughter thought they would all perish together. In a desperate act, Pastor Masters broke a window and rescued his wife and daughter. Sadly, their 2-year-old son, Timothy, was carried away by the current and lost. Across the city, devastation was complete. 15 bridges were destroyed, more than 5,000 cars were tossed about like toys, and ruptured gas lines ignited fires that raged through the night. When the storm finally subsided, a scar of destruction cut through Rapid City unlike anything ever seen before. When the sun rose on Saturday morning, June 10th, the rain had finally stopped and the floodwaters were beginning to recede. But the city that emerged from the murky water was almost unrecognizable. Entire neighborhoods that had stood just the day before were gone, replaced by thick mud, tangled debris, and twisted wreckage. Streets were buried under layers of silt, and what remained of homes looked like shattered puzzles. Survivors wandered through the destruction in shock, many searching for missing family members or what was left of their belongings. One man recounted looking for his house, only to find, "My house is no more. There just isn't anything." The human cost was staggering. 238 people lost their lives, including 15 first responders, who died while trying to save others. More than 3,000 residents were injured, some with life-altering wounds. Physical damage was immense. Over 1,300 homes were completely destroyed, and thousands more were severely damaged. The flood washed away 15 bridges and smashed more than 5,000 vehicles. In terms of financial cost, the damage was estimated at over $160 million in 1972, equivalent to more than $1.2 billion today. Beyond the physical destruction, the flood left a deep psychological scar on the community. Many people lost not just their homes, but their entire sense of security. The tragedy exposed how vulnerable even well-established cities could be to sudden natural disasters, especially when rare weather patterns combined with geographical risk. This grim morning marked the start of a long road to recovery for Rapid City, a city forced to confront its losses while searching for hope amid the ruins. Even as the floodwaters continued to recede, Rapid City faced an overwhelming crisis. Officials quickly set up emergency shelters in the schools, churches, and public buildings to house thousands of people who had lost their homes. These spaces became hubs of relief and hope amid the devastation. Nearby military installations, including Camp Rapid and Ellsworth Air Force Base, opened their gates and mobilized personnel to provide crucial support. They offered food, clothing, medical care, and temporary shelter, helping thousands who were displaced. Rescue teams and volunteers worked around the clock, searching for survivors, recovering bodies, and clearing debris. Local residents joined the effort, demonstrating incredible community spirit in the face of disaster. The Federal Disaster Assistance Administration, along with state and local agencies, coordinated relief efforts, while aid also arrived from other states and even international sources. The scale of the disaster attracted national attention. Donations poured in, including supplies and money to support those affected. Hospitals and clinics operated under immense pressure, treating injuries ranging from minor cuts to life-threatening trauma. Mental health services were eventually introduced to help survivors cope with the emotional toll. Despite the exhaustion and heartbreak, Rapid City's recovery efforts showed remarkable determination. Volunteers and officials pushed forward with rebuilding plans, cleanup operations, and restoring essential services. The tragedy had exposed critical vulnerabilities, but it also sparked a renewed commitment to rebuilding a safer, stronger community. In the wake of the devastating flood, Rapid City's leaders faced a critical choice: rebuild as before or change fundamentally to protect the future. Leonard Swanson, the city's public works director, delivered a bold message to the city council. He declared that no one should ever again live in what he called the deadly floodplain. This powerful statement set the course for one of the most ambitious urban renewal projects in the United States. Instead of reconstructing homes and businesses in the floodplain, the city embarked on a massive land buyout program. Entire neighborhoods along Rapid Creek were either relocated or demolished. This effort transformed the vulnerable flood zone into an expansive greenway, a series of parks, trails, and open spaces designed to absorb floodwaters and prevent future catastrophes. Today, Memorial Park stands as a lasting tribute to the 238 lives lost that tragic night. Around the city, markers show the terrifying water heights from June 9th and 10th, reminding residents and visitors alike of the disaster's immense power. The Greenway not only serves as a beautiful community space, but also a critical part of the city's flood control system, drastically reducing the risk of future destruction. While the flood of 1972 was a rare event, estimated to occur only once every 500 years, it remains a stark reminder that nature's power can strike without warning. Rapid City's response showed resilience, courage, and a willingness to learn from tragedy. The city did more than rebuild. It transformed itself to protect future generations. The story of the Black Hills flood is one of horror and loss, but also hope and renewal. It teaches us about the limits of human control over nature and the strength communities can find in the darkest times. Remembering this event is vital, not only to honor those who perished, but to ensure the lessons learned continue to save lives.